And if you're new with us, you have found yourself in the middle of a series that we are calling Soul Care. And we are on week number 4 of Soul Care. And what we've been breaking down is essentially what is a soul. The series kind of builds on a premise that Jesus wants us to prosper even as our soul prospers. So we had to break down really what is a soul. It's a word we don't all understand sometimes. It's a thing that's hard to define. So we broke it down, and the way we described it is that your soul, it is your mind, it is your emotions, and it is your will. It is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And so last week what we did is really broke this down through what we call cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's a triangle here that they're going to pull up for you. And what it shows is thoughts, feelings, behaviors. And what I believe is the science is actually with Jesus in this moment. It's actually giving us a map for what your soul looks like. Your soul is made up by your thoughts, or AKA the soundtracks, the thoughts that you allow to live on repeat inside your mind. And then what they also do is they lead to the feelings you feel. That the things you think about yourself and the people around you will ultimately lead to the feelings and the emotions that you have. And then your feelings and your emotions will ultimately lead to the behaviors and the routines and the rhythms that you have inside your life. And then vice versa, it just does that circle over and over and over again. The behaviors you have will ultimately affect the thoughts that you have about yourself and the people around you. And so last week, we really got down to the practical of what does it look like to actually care for your soul. And so we started on soundtracks because I actually believe that of all the places to start, it's the best. Because it's the most practical, it's the easiest to walk through. If you can just change the way you think about you, what you say to yourself and what you say to the people around you, it is going to have a massive effect on the emotions that you have and the way that you feel about yourself and the people around you. You start with the thoughts and it bleeds down to the feelings. So today, we're going to process the emotion side of that. My question for you real quick, do we got any feelers in the house? Anybody bold enough? Go ahead, yeah. So what I mean by feeler is can you go from 0 to 60 like that? It don't take you no time. You know what I'm saying? You can just, day be totally fine and then hot trash right in the middle of a moment. Or maybe it's it don't even take a whole lot for you to just get a good crying. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes if someone needs someone to cry with them, you're the one. You know what I'm saying? I got you. I'm so good at that. Come here, rest your head on my shoulder, and we'll just weep together. I'm a massive feeler. I got big feels all the time. I am a fly from the seat of my pants type of dude. And man, I hate it. So much. And I'm going to be honest with you. There are moments where if you grow up in church at all, you hear preachers say this sermon's just as much for me as it is for you. This is real talk just as much for me as it is for you. That for me, if you were to ask me the hardest part of my soul care, it's my emotions. That when I'm out of balance, when I'm dysregulated, when my life isn't moving the way it's supposed to, it's because my emotions aren't in check. This is the red flag that tells on me time and time and time and time again. And if I'm being honest with you, I feel really insecure, really inadequate to get to have a conversation with you because I'm walking this out with you. And so what I just want you to understand today is none of us really are experts. We're all trying to navigate this thing together. And so today my hope is to help you process what to do with it, how to handle and navigate the emotions and the feelings that you have in this life. And the issue is if you're like me, man, it's hard to do that. Because I think that culture and life and family oftentimes are really, really good at teaching us simply that just emotions are bad. That you don't want to process them, that you don't want to look at them, you don't want to talk about them, you don't want to figure out what's really going on, just hide it, move it away. And it typically looks like a couple of ways. If you're a male, it's oftentimes culture will teach you that if you're emotional, if you have real feelings, you're soft. Now, real men don't feel that. Real men don't cry. Real men don't process. Real men don't talk about those things. That's for the ladies. The ladies do that. And then for ladies, man, if you're honest at all, if you get real at any moment, people just call you irrational. If you try to portray half the emotion that a man does, people just tell you that you're all in your feels, that you're crazy, that you're too much, that you're emotional. And so then you feel the same way. You don't even get to process your emotions. And what culture does a lot to us is it teaches us that we have to hide what we feel, that we can't really navigate it. That we're not allowed to really peel that back, to process that, to figure out what the heck is happening inside of our souls, where people just label us as irrational or soft or any number of reasons that this thing becomes so incredibly difficult. But the problem is that even if you're not a super high feeler, even if you're the most rational, most logic person in the room, you also are driven by your emotions. No matter who you are, no matter how much of your crap you think you got together, we are all emotional people. And we all have moments where the truth is it's not logic that's driving us, it's the emotions we have. And there's this really amazing sermon series that I would totally recommend you to check out that our lead pastor did several years ago. It's called Driving Emotions. Because the whole series is essentially breaking down the idea that we all have emotions that drive the bus. That like if our life was a bus, we all have certain emotions that are sitting in the driver's seat. That they are ultimately kind of steering and guiding us. They're the frameworks behind the way we make decisions, the things that we do, the thoughts that we have, the behaviors that we walk out, that we all have feelings. And they're in the driver's seat and they're taking us one direction or another. And the question for me that's difficult when you've been taught that you can't feel things and you can't process them and you're not sure what emotions are good, what emotions are bad, like what emotions should be on the bus? Like what should be driving us? What does it even look like to have an emotionally healthy soul? Like what does that look like? And I think Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 and 23 shows us. It reads like this. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The law is not against such things. I think what Paul is breaking down for us here is really the emotions that should be driving the bus. That love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, all of these are the kinds of emotions that you want to be governed by. That these are the emotions you want to be behind the decisions that you make, not fear, not anxiety, not anger, not frustration, but you want to get to a place to where the emotions driving your life are good ones, that they're the fruits of the Spirit. And the truth is like I don't think Paul wrote in this passage every good emotion there is. But what about like excited? That ain't in there, and that's a real good one for me. What you talking about? I was like, no. I don't think the whole point behind Paul here was to give you an exhaustive list of every good emotion you should have. It's to help you understand that this is the concept. Like from these emotions spring out all of the good ones that you want in your bus. That you're the ones you want driving, steering you throughout the life. My question is, how many of you that either drive your own vehicle or ride around with your mom and daddy have a check engine light happening in the car? Yes, a couple of you. Man, some of y'all are really on it. That's super cool. I got one right now. Check engine light sitting on my vehicle. Honestly, every car I've ever owned has had a check engine light, if I'm going to be honest with you. That thing really just be sitting there, like blinking at me and be like, I don't even see you at the I worked at McDonald's. I don't even see flashing lights no more. Like it just is what it is. They're not essential for me. And what's interesting to me is like, the truth is like that check engine light really probably doesn't matter that much right now. I've gotten 2, 3, 4 years out of cars with check engine lights on them. Like, the truth is you probably can. You can get from point A to point B a couple 100,000 times. But that check engine light, however, is telling you that there's something mechanically inside that engine that is not firing the way it's supposed to. That something's off. Something's not the way it was intended. Something's happening the way it was not designed to happen. And the problem is if you ride that vehicle long enough, if you leave that light on long enough, eventually the engine's going to break. Eventually the car's going to shut down. Eventually it isn't going to be able to function like it's supposed to. And the truth is if you leave your check engine light on in your heart long enough, it will still blow up. The truth is that emotions really are check engine lights. That the things that we feel are really just helping us understand what's happening. And when we find the negative ones, when those real emotions that are difficult show up, it's to help you understand, whoa, like, hey, something ain't right. And you can ignore them a lot. And you can move and you can function. You can get from point A to point B. And some of y'all have been ignoring the light your whole life. But if you let that thing ride out long enough, it isn't going to play out the way you want. All it's going to create for you is chaos. So what I want to say is not processing your feelings doesn't make them go away. Ignoring the fact that you're hurt. Ignoring the fact that you're sad. Ignoring the fact that you're angry, ignoring the fact that you're scared, ignoring the fact that you don't know what the heck's happening and anxiety is finding its way to you, does not make those emotions not exist. It only makes them get worse. And what I've learned personally as someone who is truly horrific at managing his own emotions and is trying to work with you also as I learned this, is that most people have really one or two ways that they handle emotions when they're hiding them. The first group is you're like me. And you're just a walking volcano. Like you can low-key probably stuff some stuff a while. Eventually, though, you are about to burn everything. The whole world will be covered in ash by the time you're done. Like at some point, that lid is going to flip and to heck with everybody. Like I'm coming with all that I am. And you are just going to vent and unload and set everybody on fire around you. And you'll have moments and seasons where you're ignoring it, but eventually you're going to burn the bridges and hurt the people closest to you. And throughout my life, I have far too many times not been honest about what I was feeling and watched the people closest to me get hurt because I volcanoed all over them. Because I didn't do the work of actually processing what I was feeling, and so then everyone paid the price for it. Or you're the other side, and instead of exploding, you imploding. And what happens for you is the story you tell yourself is, well, I'm really just protecting people's feelings. You love them so well, right? Like you don't want to see their feelings get hurt. You don't want to be mean to them. You don't want to hurt them. You don't want to do anything like that. Meanwhile, you're dying inside. You're not acknowledging the fact that you're not okay, that they're hurting you, that they're taking advantage of you, that things aren't okay in your soul. And so instead of having the conversations, you lie to yourself like you're protecting them, but really all that's happening is you're dying inside. You're setting yourself on fire to keep people warm. And it doesn't play out the way you want. All you're allowing is cancer to flourish and fester inside your heart because you're not processing what's happened, because the very same people you want to protect will be the very people you have grudges the rest of your life on. They're the very same people that you will never be able to let go of because they hurt you so much, because you couldn't get in front of the emotion you were wrestling with in the moment. No matter how you play this thing out, the route only ends getting worse. When you don't process your emotions as someone who is telling you from so much experience, it just doesn't work. You can't explain it away. You can't just act like it's not there. You have to do the work of processing and figuring out what is happening. So how do we check the engine? When the light's off, like what do we do? What does that look like? How do we actually process our emotions? Because I don't know about you, but no one ever taught me how to do that. I didn't have an example in my life of emotionally healthy people. So no one's walked me through what the heck even checking the engine is, why the engine's there, what that light means. I got no clue what any of these, I know I feel them, they all here. I'm ready to box all the time. I don't know why though. What do I do with it? Right, so today we're going to process how to do that. What I would say to you is what I've said this whole time is you can't understand, you can't care for what you don't understand. You can't care for what you don't understand, and the first thing is you have to figure out you. At some point, you have to do the hard work of being honest about who you are and how you're built, and be introspective enough to figure out, like, what triggers you? What's it take to make you work? Like, what is you? How are you wired? How are you built? How were you designed so you can figure out what to do with the emotions? And one of the best ways I know to do this is through something we call the Enneagram. It's this awesome test that helps you break down really what to do with the emotions you have. It walks through your core desires and your core fears and the wounded soundtracks that you have inside your heart, and it like helps you really navigate like what those root things inside you need are. And to be clear, I'm not telling you that it's a fix-all, right? You aren't going to take a test on the Enneagram and magically everything's good. Also, it isn't Jesus and it's not the Bible, so it's got gaps. I'm not telling you the Enneagram is the end-all, be-all to who you are. You are much more than a test. Right, so you don't get to have an excuse. As someone who's an Enneagram 8 who wants to set the world on fire, I don't get to just be a jerk because I'm an 8. You still got to figure out how to be healthy with the people around you. Vice versa for some of you 2s who just want to be out here and love people real well and not talk about your own opinions and just be seething inside. Guess what? At some point, you got to learn to talk. You got to be honest about what you're wrestling with. You got to say what you need. You don't get to use your personality as an excuse to be unhealthy, but figuring out what your personality is and how you're wired helps you get healthy. You cannot care for what you don't understand. Until we process who we are and how we're built, we're going to be living this life just blind. And the reason I like the Enneagram is because it breaks down really a lot of things, but there's 3 parts specifically that stick out to me. The first one is understanding what your core desire is. Right now, I can't speak to all the numbers. I don't know all the numbers. I'm not an Enneagram expert. I'll just walk you through who I am. I'm a type 8, right? So for me, when I take the Enneagram test, I'm 100% 8 every single time. And so for me, my core desire, when you break down that, is to protect myself. So for me, I just don't want to get hurt. And I want to protect the people closest to me, right? So for me, when I'm out in the world, like I am the best person in the world to have on your team because I will cut everyone's tires for you and I don't even need to know why. If I'm for you, I'm in. I'm a whole hot mess, just ready to go. Point me the direction. I will burn a trail for you. Right? For me, that the core desire of everything is really just to be protected, is to keep myself safe and to keep people safe around me. And understanding that helps me understand the way I make my decisions and how I get to places and the way I process stuff and why I think differently than other people. It's really helpful to understand really that root motivation. The other part of it that I like a lot is it breaks down your core fear. This one's difficult. This one's real hard, to be honest, that you're scared sometimes. And all throughout my life, man, the fear that is most consistent is I just don't want to be manipulated or hurt. Like I'm so afraid that you are going to take advantage of me. Like asking for help is hard for me, not because I don't believe you can do it. It's because I'm afraid to give you ammo. Because if you really get to know me, if you really figure out who I am, if you really see behind the curtain, if you know me well enough, then now you have ammo to hurt me in the deepest way. So for me, like I'll have a hard time building the relationships I need and getting into the circles I need to be in. Tribes would be very difficult for me as a teenager because I'm afraid if you get to know me, you're going to hurt me. And so the way I process my life is really keeping that as low a possibility as possible, which means when I'm hurting and when my emotions are out of whack, I don't know what to do because I'm afraid to tell you I'm not okay. Because I'm afraid if you find out, I'm not going to make it. Like you're going to do something to me. I'm emotional. I told you I was a high feeler. Something about it's hard. This is a really hard sermon for me because I don't like being honest with you that I don't have all my stuff together. And you're going to find the same wrestle for you as you navigate who you are. There are going to be parts of this that you don't love. There are going to be parts that are uncomfortable, parts that are hard, parts that are going to be difficult, but you can't just not have them. Because if you do, you will never be the full person God's called you to be. You don't get to be deeper. You don't get to figure out all that God. You don't get to the end of this thing fully flourished and doing all that God's called you if you don't do the work of processing who you are and what you need to be healthy. And the third one for me that is really helpful is the Enneagram calls it your wounding message, but for me, I'm going to just call it unhealthy soundtrack. And for me, mine is it's not okay to be vulnerable. I've tried it before, and it cost me. I've been open before, and it cost me. I've had people really close to me that I trusted a lot that were supposed to have my back and didn't have my back. And when I'm not careful, that soundtrack lives on repeat in my heart, which ultimately messes up all the emotions because when I'm not okay, I can't ask for help. See, understanding how I'm built really helps me figure out what to do with the emotions that I'm having. Helps you understand how to navigate and to walk through this. And tonight, what you're going to do inside your tribes is you're going to take your Enneagram test. Now, you don't have to. We ain't about to, gavel you. This ain't prison. But I would very much encourage you to take the test. To just process through how you're built and have some beautiful conversations today on what does that mean for you? What does that look like for you? All of your tribe leaders have taken the test, so they'll be able to have a conversation about how they're built and what they're going on. We ain't going to have you be honest and us not be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? We're going to lead the way. But what you will find out is you aren't the only person. You're not the only one that thinks what you think. You're not the only one that feels what you feel. And you're not the only person who doesn't have all your stuff together. Your pastor doesn't and your tribe leaders don't. We are all out here trying to just get healthy together. And the next step is once you've processed kind of how you're built and how you're wired, the question you have to ask yourself is, why am I feeling this? And this one is messy. This one is scary. This one is hard. Trying to figure out why I'm feeling what I'm feeling opens a long list of things. And for some of you, if you're like me, that is terrifying. Because you're scared to figure out why you're feeling what you're feeling. You're afraid to pull that back because what happens? When I really pull that layer back, when I really dive into what's happening inside my soul, like, am I going to like what I see? What's going to happen when I knock that domino down? How many more fall with it? How big is this ripple effect? What's going to take place when I'm really honest about me and I really do the work? I get in my soul and I start to care for my emotions. What's going to happen? Can I handle what I find? Like, that is so scary. Sometimes we're so fixated on how scary what something might be, we can't do the work in front of us. What's going to happen? And for some of us, it's like, what are people going to say? Like, if I'm ever actually honest, if I'm ever real, if I really do ask for help, what are they going to say about me? What are they going to think about me? We're going to find out if I had to go to therapy. We're going to find out if their pastor isn't got his crap together and he's honest about the fact that he's messy too. What are they going to think? Are they going to want to keep me around? Who's going to be the next person they replace me with? All of these unhealthy soundtracks just keep playing themselves out over and over and over and over again. And so not having the conversation doesn't make anything better. Another one that happens is, I don't know if I can take it. How bad is it going to hurt? Like, am I strong enough to do it? Am I strong enough to get through the emotion? Am I strong enough to ask the hard questions and really process what's happening in my soul? I think that's the problem. Some of us have spent our whole life just trying to survive. We don't know that we can thrive. We're just used to making it through. We don't know that there's something better in front of us. And so the work of doing the hard things, of asking the hard questions, doesn't feel like it's worth it because you don't even know what good could be. You've just made it. What I want to say is that surviving focuses on the fear of today. Thriving focuses on hope in tomorrow. Surviving focuses on fear of today. Thriving focuses on hope in tomorrow. if you are only aware of how scary the work is today, you're never going to touch the hope of what is tomorrow. There's so much good in you, and there's so much beauty that God wants to release in your life, but you've got to take the step. You've got to do the work. Luke chapter 14, verse 28 reads like this. For which of you, wanting to build a tower, doesn't first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? And for some of you, you are counting the cost. You are doing exactly what most people preach the scripture to do, right? Like, oh, I am. That's why I'm not doing it. I think I know exactly what this is going to do. I think I know exactly how much this is going to hurt. I think I know exactly what this is going to cost me. I'm good. My question for you, what if you don't? What if you don't? Really easy to count the cost of what happens if I take the step, but what happens if you don't? Who are you in 6 months? What's the condition of your soul in a year? What kind of wife do you become? What kind of husband do you become? What kind of dad? What kind of mom? What kind of human are you in 10 years? What are you going to do in college? What kind of person do you like? What if you don't? What if you actually don't ever take the step? What if you actually never unpack? What happens if you actually do spend the rest of your life covering up every emotion you don't want to be honest about? Who are you then? What's the fruit of that? What's the product of that? Because what I can promise you is it does not work. As someone who has tried it and walked the play, I promise you it does not work. You cannot ignore it. You can't hide it. It's there, and until you process it, you are going to die from the inside out. There are parts of you that God wants to flourish that can't because you won't do the work. What it looks like is it looks like spending your entire life isolated, like never really getting to know the intimacy that God had for you, never getting to have a single healthy relationship, never having someone that really loves you and gets to know you because you're so afraid of getting hurt. But what it looks like is not counting what not doing it is spending your entire life having seasons where relationships are good, friends are close, and relationships are strong, and then like life gets difficult and you just blow up. And it's having moments of peace and joy just to set them all on fire because you don't know what's happening. Or it looks like spending your entire life anxious and afraid and depressed because you won't figure out what's happening in your soul. It doesn't play out the way you want. I could tell you that all day, and I'm trying to tell you from what I felt, but at some point you just have to decide for you. Is the cost of not doing it worth it? And what I believe you'll find is it isn't. That it's absolutely worth taking the step. That it's absolutely worth asking the hard questions. Absolutely worth processing what's happening in your soul. And for some of y'all might be where I was like this week. It's like, I mean, yeah, but like it's better than it was though. Right? Like, I'm better than I was at 16. I don't feel as messy as I was when I was 16. My life is emotionally better than really all of my family, so like it's better than it was. Why would I dig deeper? Why would I try to figure out what's happening past what I know now? Because I'm already better than I ever thought I would be. There's a danger in living your life with the whole philosophy of if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And the truth is, for some of you, you know it's broke. So really what you're saying is if it can function, don't fix it. If the car can still move, I'm not going to the mechanic. You know what I'm saying? I got through today. I made it through this week. I'll be fine. You only get so many of those weeks. And they stack and they stack and they stack and they stack. And maybe you can make it longer than the person next to you, but you don't get to the end of this thing happy. You don't get to the end of this thing with peace. You don't get to the end of this thing with joy. You might make it all the way through to the last breath that you take, but you will not live a full life. It's not worth it. The whole premise of this passage, or this whole sermon series, is 3 John chapter 1, verse 2. And it is, beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be good in health as it goes well with your soul. The thing I'm trying to learn is that better than it was isn't God's plan for your soul. prospering is. Just making it, just getting by, just doing enough, just not quitting, not giving up. That's enough for me. It's not. It's not God's plan for you. It's not God's purpose for you, man. He wants you to thrive. He wants you to win and to have generation after generation after generation that is healthy and loves well and is full of joy because of the work you did. And it is not fair that you have to do it. It's not fair that the people before you didn't hand you better tools. It's not fair to you that someone didn't teach you how to process, but that can't be an excuse not to get healthy. "40-year-old Taylor needs 29-year-old Taylor to do the work. And my kids need me to do the work. And my wife needs me to do my work. And the future of all that God wants me to do needs me to do the work. So please do the work. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't be afraid. Ask the questions. Do the difficult things. And what I need you to understand is that you can tell, like when you do it, man, things rise to the top. But there are 3 things you have to understand. The first thing is I don't know is okay. I had this awesome conversation with Fallon. She's one of the amazing leaders that sings on stage. And she was like, when I'm really having a hard time not understanding what I'm feeling, I just say I don't know. And I come back to it. And I don't know why that is so freeing, but for some of you it might be. Because when I heard it, I found out it's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay not to know it all. It's okay that if the first time you've ever processed what's happening in your soul, you don't have answers, it's okay. Keep processing. Keep digging. Keep looking. Keep searching. Because the truth is there's no finish line to this thing. It's a process. Jesus didn't ask you to get to the end of the thing with all your crap figured out. He just wanted you to lean into him. Which is why one of my favorite passages of Scripture is Matthew 11, 28 through 30. It reads like this in the Message. "Are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. And I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." You don't have to figure it all out now. And in fact, I'm probably not going to figure out my stuff this month. But I'm not stopping. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to do the things I need to do. I'm going to figure out what's happening so that one day I can look back and realize, like, my kids, no, they get to see what looks like the process of emotions. I'm healthy. I'm thriving. Better than it was is not God's best for me. I want to prosper. I want to thrive. I want my soul to be healthy. And my deepest prayer for you today is that you want the same thing. That you would process your soul so that God could do the work that he wants. So you could see the life that he dreams for you. Our associate youth pastor said something to me yesterday that had me shook. He said, your emotions aren't eternal, you are. And I think the scariest part of processing emotions for me is they feel so big and they feel like they'll never end. But I was having a conversation with a therapist this week and they let me know that, like, emotions on average really only last 3 to 5 minutes. That no matter how big they are, no matter how scary they are, 3 to 5 minutes. It's a wave that'll come and it'll crash and you can breathe on the backside. And it doesn't mean you'll never feel the emotion again. It doesn't mean that wave won't come back, but it is to tell you that that peak emotion does not last forever. But do you know who does last forever? You. You are eternal. The spirit that God put inside you does not just fade out. You are stronger than your emotion. You are big enough to do the work. You can last this thing out. You can do the work, and you've got Jesus' help to do it. You are eternal, not your emotions. And I get that they're scary because I'm really scared myself, but I can promise you is you can beat them out. You can do the work, you can process. You're going to outlast every fear you have because God is that good. Because he built you to be able to walk it through. And not only did you give you everything necessary to walk it out, he's going to be with you every step of the way. You are not alone. Which leads me to the last thing as we close. And that is you are safe to process here. And as someone who's an Enneagram 8, I often forget this is true. And it's frustrating how easy it is to forget things that are true for you. Man, we can. And you hear us say all the time that this is a place that you are safe. This is a place that you are loved. This is a place that has leaders that love you. This is a place that you can belong before you believe. And we say it every single week. And we will never stop saying it as long as I have the privilege to stand on the stage because I've forgotten it. I've been here 7 years, and I still have moments where I forget that I'm safe enough to ask. That just because other people hurt me before doesn't mean this place won't. That I'm surrounded by people that love me. I'm surrounded by people that care for me, so I can actually do the work, because when I'm not strong enough, they'll hold me up. And what I need you to understand today is no matter how big the fear for you is, no matter how big the reasons are to not do the work, to not process the emotion part of your soul, you aren't alone in it. You are surrounded by a team of people who are just as messy and just trying to navigate the same story. And what we know is that we've just been in the hospital a little bit longer than you. We've been following Jesus just a little bit longer. That's really all we got. We ain't better, we ain't smarter. We've just been doing it just a little bit longer. And so we know a few places to go, and we'll help you walk through it. But I need you to understand that you can do this. And you can do it not only because you were built to do it, not only because God's got good for you, but you got people standing with you. You are safe to process. And if it takes 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 years, we're not leaving you. You see, the thing is you don't graduate from family. So if you're a senior in here and you're like, I don't have enough time. No, you do. We ain't leaving you. This is home. We done adopted you already. You can't get out of this. We got you. So whatever the reasons are, trust that God can do it. And my challenge to you today is simple. Process how you're wired. Take the test. Figure out what you're built, how the things in you function, and then start asking why. And trust that God is going to do a good work, because he wants you to prosper even as your soul does. Let's pray.